Muchas gracias. Un segundo. Un momento, por favor. ¿Cómo te llamas? Me llamo Mark. ¿Dónde vives? Vivo en Londres. Morning, Sally O'Sullivan, Ellen, Clodagh Egan. Margaret O'Brien, Nicola Madgwick. How art thou? How are we all? How are you? I can hear something. Who's watching Obi-Wan? Is anyone watching Obi-Wan Kenobi? Or is no one watching Obi-Wan Kenobi? Or is Obi-Wan watching Obi? Is anyone watching Obi-Wan Kenobi? Margaret O'Brien, I went to South Africa 4.5 years ago. I did not like the heat then. It was too hot. Roads are melting in Britain, guys. It's so hot. Roads are melting. No exaggeration. In Suffolk, the A140 was shut between the Stoneham Magpie pub in Little Stoneham and the junction for Mickfield because of damage caused by soaring temperature. Melting roads. Roads are melting in scorching summertime heat. Summer, summer, summertime, summertime. Drink your wine. Summertime. Summer, summer, summertime, summertime. Right, Nicola S. Yeah, roads are melting. Does anyone else remember that from the 70s? I remember tarmac melting. I literally remember tarmac going gooey. I remember that sort of strange tarmac that's still there on the steps of Georgian buildings. It would melt like icing on a cake, but it was dark and tarry. And I wanted to eat it. I wanted to sort of shave it off and eat it. Morning, Claire Ross Reed. Morning, the Creeber family. How are you and your lovely brood? Hazel Malbon, you do remember the tarmac. Tarmac. Me and my brother fried an egg on the pavement in 1976, Chloe Lee. Did you take a photo? Because, I mean, let's not forget, it was only things like Polaroids and stuff like that. I remember shit like that. I remember cooking an egg or frying an egg on the bonnet of a car near Death Valley. Not literally in Death Valley, but near Death Valley. The smell of tar in the morning. Yeah, so anyway, roads are melting and it's only going to get hotter. It's going to get 34 degrees tomorrow, isn't it? We touched upon it yesterday. What's your strategy for coping with the heat? Mine is to run excessively and do workouts and run 5Ks so that you have no liquid left in your body. That's one thing I like to do. Claire Ross, really lovely and sunny there. What's the weather like? Where has anyone here got rain? I'd love to know if anyone's got rain. Have you got a rain cloud over you? Debbie Moorcroft, don't like it, too hot, I hide indoors. Let's just do a very simple poll to kick things off, shall we? Do you like the heat? Haven't got nads telling me how to write them. I've got nads confusing the answers. And then I look at what I've posted and it doesn't make sense. Blinds closed, windows closed, no pure blue skies. Hi, Denise. Chin chin. How are we all? We're going to be talking about the only way is ethics. Well, the only way is out for Boris's ethics, not minister, but ethics advisor. I've got a rain cloud in my head, says Beth Scammell. I know what you mean. Had to have my first MRI yesterday and I ran out in a panic. Oh, sweetheart, can we all send a huge hug to Beth Scammell? Yeah, the MRI scan. I know what you mean. I'm one of those, I'm a sort of doctor avoidant. Is anyone else where you sort of think, I know I've got to go, I know I need to get it checked, but I don't really want to know the answers. And I know that's wrong and we shouldn't be advising that. And there's many examples of where that isn't the way to proceed. The Peach 72 used to love the sun, don't like it so much now. I know what you mean. For me, the sun evokes being hungover, to be honest. Not much else. It just makes me think of feeling really peaky and odd and sort of cloying and eek and all that kind of stuff. So I have to overcome that with the sun before I get to a nice place with the sun. Morning, Anne Murray. Reem AW, not a fan of the heat, it's 44 degrees. Reem AW, did you get your 24-month card? A whole host of them all are going out again later today, my lovelies. The post office is going to try and cope with the weight of all your letters. Absolutely love the heat in the summer. I don't mind walking through snow, says Ella Ridges. Okay, here's a question. Do you prefer being too hot and needing to get cold, or do you prefer being too cold and needing to get hot? There you go, killer question of the day, number 3. Don't know what the first two were. Oh, the first one was, do you like the hot? Do you like the hot? Jackie Villino, our country is not adapted. It's kind of coincidental and kind of fortuitous that there's a railway strike next week, because let's face it, all the lines would be melting and buckling, and, you know, the heat would stop traffic, wouldn't it, and trains. Beth Scammell, love wrapping up cozy and warm. Jordan Stevenson, too cold and get warm. Easier to warm up than cool down. Too cold as you can put layers on, Laura S. Danielle Smith, prefer to be too cold. Caroline Turlington prefers to be too hot. Nicola Madrick, I'd rather be cold and get wrapped up. In love? Bev Hartnell and me, Nicola M, like the cold. To cold and get warm. Sonia Donovan. Hate being cold, Mark. We're freezing here in Cork. Awful June. Is it raining in Cork, Bellex? You like to be too cold, Jackie Villano, and get warm. Shoshana, I like it on holiday, but not living normal life in Edinburgh. I don't like hot weather in the UK. Summer depression is real. I know, Nadia, don't say anything to Nadia about this, but there's something called toxic positivity. It's where, and this is an awful phrase, I'm not signing up to it, but it's a phrase that people use, which is something along the lines of Nazi parlour games. The idea being that you've got to have fun, and you've got to sign up, and you've got to be cheery, and if you're not, you're somehow falling short in your obligation as a human. Toxic positivity, I kind of understand what that's about. Beth Scammell, I prefer the hot weather if we had pools everywhere and maybe AC in the bed, but of course we've got a shortage of chlorine, so you might have pools, but you can't get in them. Ellen, hot in North Wales. I saw a really funny meme somewhere about Wales saying all the beaches were shut or something. They were closed for business or something. It was funnier than that. Obviously, that wasn't funny what I just said, but there was something funny. It made me chuckle. Ouija Woman, I like your name, Ouija Woman. Kintyre, Mull of Kintyre, cloudy and rain on and off. You sound like the shipping forecast. Julie Hilton, morning Mark, it's my mum's funeral tomorrow, hottest day of the year. Old Julie, sending all our love and prayers to Julie Hilton for a funeral tomorrow. Wow, yeah, hot day. That's, yeah. It's hard, isn't it, to kind of go through sort of the normal emotional stuff, or the not normal emotional stuff of day-to-day living when it's so hot, so hot. Claire Ross, don't worry, it will be coming. It will be coming due to, we've had all sorts of mitigating circumstances this year. We've had very ill Teddy. We've had terrible things happen. Poor old, as you know recently, my mother's brother. We've had all sorts of, and we've had sort of other bits and bobs that seem to have been happening. There's been a lot of things conspiring to get in the way of admin, just busyness. Total Storm Addict, good day lovelies. I'm sick of winter here and miss and long for summer. You're down under, aren't you? And it's presumably pissing with rain, is it? How is Nanny Di? Nanny Di's good, thank you very much. She had a nice birthday. We made a fuss of her, and she ate cake. Lifts your spirits, sunny and warm, good washing day, laugh out loud, says Sally A. Laugh out loud or love on long? What does LOL mean? When people say LOL, what do they actually mean? Tell me what they mean. Tell me what they mean. What do they mean by LOL? Laugh out loud, lots of love. Legs of legs. Laugh out loud, Jordan Stephen. It is laugh out loud. And PMSL, piss myself laughing? Is that what it is? There's no hyphen, I'm being literal. PMSL, is it PMSL? PMSFL? PISMFL? PIMSFL. League of the Lost, Dachshund and Terrier Forever. The Peach, do you have a, my friend means laugh out loud, lots of love. What does PMFSL mean? PMFSL. Orla, sending you love. Sending you love. Piss myself laughing. Oh, it is. And is it piss myself fucking laughing? You mustn't say the swear word because, you know. Although this is not for youngsters, these lives aren't for anyone, and it states that they're not for anyone younger. I know younger people do watch it. I swore. Hi, Martin Smith. Hope you're well. FFS. For fuck's sake. For fuck's sake. Hashtag fuck off Friday. Pissing myself laughing. Nicola Madrick. Are you? I mean, it's quite a literal image, isn't it? Imagine. I mean, Nadia does. I mean, every now and then. Don't tell her. Roll on floor laughing. Ruffle. Okay, give me a sec. Ruffle. Roll on floor laughing. FML. What's that? For my love? fidget my legs. SMH, shake my head. Oh, I wonder who came up with them. I think someone just sort of looked at them, yeah, I don't know. ETA, FLP, TLC, MOT. Come on, let's do it. We're early, Total Storm Addict, that's why we're early. So if you could, okay, let's do a little quiz question. Should we lead the topics with a little poll question? If you could, let's have a look at this. If you could, right, eyes on the poll. If you could, would you take don't worry, there's something going. KFC, that's another good one. There you go. If you could, would you take an exercise pill and not do exercise? Come on, be honest. If you could, if a pill delivered everything that exercise delivered you, would you take it? Would you? Exercise pill. Number two, Julie Everts. Honestly, number two. Definitely, Bev Hartnell, definitely. Well, they have devised an exercise pill, whilst you're all answering. If the pill is safe, says Faith Goodman. Very good question, very good statement, very good exclamation, very good comment. If you could take a pill to get the benefits of exercise, would that be the end of your fitness regime? Well, scientists have managed to pinpoint the molecule, or a molecule, in the blood that is produced during exercise. So, of course, what they're hoping to do is generate that molecule or generate that sort of chemical and artificially pop it in a pill so that when you take it. Now, this isn't really about not going to the gym, because as we say an awful lot on this channel, exercise is about far more than what it does for the body, it's about what it does for the mind. Isn't it, Russ? Late, get to the back of the class. Stand out in the corridor. I will deal with you later, Russ. It's not just about what it does for you physically, is it? For me, exercise is as much about the brain as it is about the body. I'm trying to think, who is it on television who talks like that? It's really annoying. So yeah, no, the exercise pill, this is, more seriously, this is a pill that's designed, and I actually think this is quite a clever thing. If they can devise this pill properly, it will help with weight loss, regulate appetite, and improve the metabolic profile, i.e. your body will not you will burn fat and what have you more easily. But this is for people who struggle or are unable to walk, to move, to exercise. And I think this would be a really good thing. This is something that would reduce, if you imagine that by sitting still, in a sense, you stagnate and everything in your body just sort of, just gets sort of sits and wallows and you need your molecules moving around and what have you. So if you've got something that artificially ups your metabolic sort of system, I'd have thought this would be really good for people who, for whatever reasons, mobility reasons, etc., disability, can't actually do exercise. Which leads me to the next question, Ellery Jones and Nicola Madwick, which is, what about if you do both? What about could it lead to being abused? Could you do exercise and take the pill? In which case your metabolic rate would be faster than a mouse on crack. Anyway, the science is quite amazing, isn't it? So there is talk of an exercise pill. Scientists have identified a molecule that could help drugs replace workouts for those who are unable to do workouts. That's the most important aspect to say there. So we've done roads are melting, we've done exercise pills. I want to talk to you about, what do you think about Boris Johnson's ethics advisor? What do we think about Boris? What does this say? Let's use that word optics. They're always big, aren't they, politicians and optics? What are the optics on this? Prime Minister with no ethics, running roughshod through international law re Northern Ireland, ignoring the European Court of Human Rights, which is enacting the rules of the European Convention of Human Rights. And there's even talk of the government removing funding to the United Nations, all just to get their way, all just to do their thing. Ethics. What does it say? What does it say to you that his ethics advisor has walked. Beth Scammell, welcome to the Family Guest. I'm not entirely sure. I think you might have returned, but welcome. I can see that you've returned. Doesn't say a lot, does it? Doesn't say a lot. So here's the question I want to ask you. Should, because he hasn't, Boris, why do you think the ethics advisor has resigned when he did? Because he was talking about resigning. He was talking about resigning around Partygate and all that kind of stuff. Christopher Geit is his name. Christopher Geit. But I just want to ask, should Boris publish his ethics advisor's resignation letter? Because surely we need to know, what was it that triggered, what do you think triggered him to walk? Because he's clever, says Nicholas. There's a really powerful comment in that, Nicola. I know exactly what you're saying. Clearly because the ethics advisor has more ethics than Boris, says Sarah Fox. What if we decide not to deal with the UK anymore because of who decides not to deal with the UK anymore? Bellex, presuming are you in Europe, maybe. The ethics advisor clearly has Sarah Fox, who said that because Boris ain't got an ethical bone in his body, says Ellen. Another scandal is about to happen, I think, says Faith Goodman. So the question is, and Angela Rayner is asking for this, is we need to see Boris Johnson's ethics advisor's resignation letter, really. Because apparently only at the beginning of last week, he was negotiating a 6-month extension or something to his contract or to his post or something like that. And so it was a sudden moment last night, wasn't it? In amongst, is it attached to Rwanda? Is there a sense, I mean, who thinks this whole sort of, regardless of the absolute legalities, regardless of what the absolute, solutions are to something like migration and asylum seeking and all that, doesn't anyone just sort of feel a taste a sort of whiff of it's just not particularly pleasant, is it? It's just not particularly pleasant what's going on with Boris and with the government and with there were reports last night of one of the asylum seekers saying he'd been manhandled, pushed and shoved by security guards onto the plane last night, as one of the asylum seekers' lawyers was saying, and he was being traumatically reminded of everything he was seeking to escape. He didn't feel safe, or they didn't feel, I don't know if it was a man or a woman, they didn't feel safe on the plane. They felt like they were being treated in the country from which they had escaped. So even if, I suppose one of the things we're trying to get at is the humanistic aspect of this whole asylum thing seems to have just gone out the window. All these politicians can sit there and argue, well, this is right, and actually, legally we can ignore this, and we're going to pull out of the European Convention, and we'll have our own courts. But what about the human aspect? What about the actual human aspect? It doesn't sound like actually on that plane it was a particularly, sounded like quite a rattling experience for people who are already rattled. So is this the right idea? Should there, perhaps here's a thought. Is there not more, because of course, don't forget, if they are cleared for asylum at the Rwanda sort of asylum seeking clearance station, where apparently they have one person who's processing it. If, say, they are successful in their claim for asylum, they have to live in Rwanda, which I think to a lot of people here who are very anti-migration and anti-immigration and anti-Europe, I think that's a great thing. I think my nan would have said, my nan would use language, and we're talking about an unrehabilitated conservative voter here from the 80s, bless her, God bless her soul. But she would use unfortunate lines like, why don't we put them all on the Isle of Wight? Or why don't we put them all, well, not the Isle of Wight, because that was right next to her. There is this sense, and I do think it's the older generation, sadly, that think that there is this sense that you can just round them all up and plonk them in a certain place, and that's the way to deal with it. Out of sight, out of mind. As long as I don't see it over my privet hedge, it ain't gonna bother me. So, I just feel that there's no sort of human aspect to this. It's become a sort of party political football that's been kicked about now, and come what may, Priti Patel will have her day. All that kind of stuff. I just don't think. I just sometimes wish the language or the tone of. if only one could do something about a tone of voice. You know what I mean? That sort of tone of voice she has, that hectoring tone of voice that sounds unsympathetic, that sounds uninterested in debate, or, you know, perhaps having got things wrong. I mean, I know no government, no, in the history of man, no government minister has admitted they've done something wrong. K10, perhaps the Home Office and their head, Priti Patel, should base themselves in Rwanda if it's so great out there. That's another possibility. But of course, so if people are successful in their application for asylum, they live in Rwanda, perhaps there could be a different way of doing this. If this kind of, perhaps you could have relationships with a number of different countries, and you would then have the option, say, if someone was successful in their application for asylum, they're given the choice of where, or, you know, or rather given the choice, it's not like a busman's holiday, but you can choose as the asylum grantor the more appropriate location. So for example, Rwanda might not be appropriate, say, for someone who is gay, who, you know, maybe seeks asylum and can't live their life normally once they've been processed in Rwanda, say. But perhaps, I don't know, I'm just thinking for want of a better expression, I don't know, maybe somewhere in Morocco would be, or, you know, and why is it always sort of developing countries that we go to? It's sort of, there's a sort of strange hierarchy there, isn't there? But, you know, I wonder whether there could be a sort of, a sort of choice of locations for people, because some countries and some cultures just might not be appropriate for certain people. I mean, I'm not even suggesting that that should be the alternative, but it's just like, why can't there be a debate about that? Why can't there be a discussion about a sort of more appropriate way of doing that? Anyway, I'm going off on one there. But yeah, so what have you got here? Should Boris publish his ethic? Yep. So the vast majority of you think he should. Who thinks it's to do? So I think it's curious. I think we're going to see a lot of pressure on Boris today to publish. As a former ethics advisor has themselves said, if they don't publish his Lord Geit's resignation letter, most people in the public will draw their own conclusions. Now, yes, but what conclusions would you draw from it other than simply enough is enough? I want to know whether it's to do with Partygate still, which I don't think it can be because he's stayed, or whether behind the scenes, he's just hearing and is sort of exposed to a culture that he finds intolerable. That would be interesting. I mean, imagine if it was like a letter saying, I had a cup of coffee with Priti over the photocopier, and I just didn't like the way she spoke. I just don't like the way she talked about Rwanda. I mean, you know what I mean? It could be something like that. It could be something like that. Because I doubt, if it was the Partygate thing, his time came and went, didn't it, to leave? And Murray, I think we've drawn our own conclusions about Boris long ago. But nothing's changing, nothing's shifting. So that's Boris's ethics. Now, Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer. What did you think? Okay, I'm going to ask you the question. Let's ask you the question. Let's lead with the poll. How do I ask this? Did Keir... okay, should Keir have mentioned... Here, my finger's going. Let your fingers do the talking. Should Keir have mentioned Love Island? Oh, it says and the ice and the ick, because no spelling, no predictive texting knows what the ick is. This is Keir Starmer, who in the House of Commons referred to Boris Johnson playing games like contestants. Now, what did you think about that? Listening to it, my problem with it, bless him, I know what he was going for. He was going for the sort of, I don't mean common in a negative way, he was going for the common touch, as in, you know, most people will relate to this, though an enormous number of you guys don't want to relate to Love Island at all. I'm kind of watching it every now and then over the shoulder. Rachel says, I generally support Keir Starmer, but yesterday felt cringy and embarrassing. I wish politicians would stop joking and just take things as seriously as they should be. There does feel like there's a chase for the populism thing, doesn't there? Whatever you think of Keir, and okay, maybe he is a bit too formal, maybe he's a bit too lawyer-like, maybe he's not as, I don't know, of the people, for the people, as maybe Angela Rayner is. I think his heart is in the right place, and I think his intentions are honourable. But I think getting him to say something about Love Island was a mistake. And I also think did you notice the emphasis was at Love Island? He put the emphasis on Love Island. Keir Starmer was the leader of the Labour Party, which is the leader of the opposition, Angela Miller, in our country, leader of the opposition party to the Conservatives. Keir and Angela should and would and could make a brilliant double act, double bill, but for some reason, why aren't they? Why, God Almighty! It's very. But the problem they're faced with, and I can see why he's clutching at things like Love Island and getting the ick, because let's face it, we all got the ick with Boris years ago, didn't we? KM, Tory spin masters will probably try and get Boris on Love Island to increase his popularity. Massive ick. Yeah, the emphasis just on the phrase, the emphasis on love was wrong. So he didn't have ownership of it. It wasn't a natural kind of gag, was it, that kind of rolled off and kind of, unfortunately, in the way that if Boris Johnson refers to, say, I think what's Boris Johnson's equivalent, an invertebrate jelly. Boris manages to make that sort of, it comes out of him like like a turd would come out of him. You would expect him to take a huge shit, just like saying an invertebrate jelly. He would say that. Whereas for Keir, who's a bit classier, going towards Love Island, it was a bit of an affectation. He was trying, Reece, you've nailed it in one, he was trying to be too down with the kids. And I think whilst the kids will forgive him, I don't think he should do it again. And the ick was also another example of not really, the trouble is, Prime Minister, he said that I'm reliably informed that contestants that give the public the ick get booted out. I think Boris doesn't mind giving the problem the Labour Party have got with Boris is just like Trump. It's like if you throw a fireball at him, he'll take the fireball like a sort of villain in a Marvel film, and the fireball will energize his chest and he'll throw it back at you even more strongly than he's received it. He manages to turn dirt into weaponry. It's really weird. It's very hard. It's very hard. But this didn't go down well on Twitter. Making jokes about Star Wars and Love Island to seem like you aren't boring just ends up making you look more boring, said someone in a horribly sort of honest and brutal kind of, it's hard, isn't it? I bet Keir is a Love Island fan, Stuart. See, if he was a good ship lollipop, Boris for sure does the most explosive farts. I think when we all just feel absolutely fed up about it, let's just imagine him trumping. I bet he trumps in the Cabinet Office, doesn't he? Who would you like, Mark? Who would you like as Prime Minister if you were? I would go for the double ticket of Andy Burnham and Angela Rayner. And I wouldn't mind which was which. I think latent institutional countrywide classism and sexism would prevent Angela Rayner for all the wrong reasons. But I think partly that's partly also northernism is what's blocking Andy Burnham. I think Andy Burnham and Angela Rayner. That would be my ticket. That would be my ticket in. So yeah, Keir Starmer trying to be down with the kids. Bless him. He's trying. But I think it was a try too hard there. Just a brief story. Every now and then, I'm mindful that it's always easy to moan, isn't it? I listen to the guys on LBC and on Sky News and all that, and they're often moaning about government policy. You have to sort of say, well, look, here's something that's good. We've talked a lot about how not enough rape convictions go through. Conviction rates are low. Dominic Raab, I know we're not massive fans of him, but 3 new rape courts are being trialled by the government to tackle the plummeting conviction rates. And these are 3 courts that are going to be fully staffed with people who have received specialist trauma training, essentially. And I think this is in response to that awful statistic, I can't remember the exact numbers, where so many, prosecutions just don't go through, and there's a dismal conviction rate process for rape convictions. So I think you have to give credit where credit's due. There's obviously a push here. This has been pushed forward since the government's rape review, in which it apologised and said it was deeply ashamed of the downward trends in bringing sexual offenders to justice. And I think you have to say that's a good thing. It's a good thing. Will it be enough? And, you can always sit there and go, there should be more, and this should have happened sooner, and all that kind of stuff. But that's good news. Now, obviously, the rail strike. Who is going to be massively impacted by the rail strike? Anyone with a child at school that has to travel any distance will be. Anyone with any work. Yeah, who's going to be? The rail strike for 3 days, plus a tube strike, plus the added detail that's being told to everyone today that even the days in between the strike days are going to be massively impacted and screwed up. So we're looking at a week of total disruption next week. But I just wanted to ask you a question, because people were getting very aerated at 6 a.m. or whatever it was this morning when Nick Ferrari was asking them about the right to strike and all that. Should workers should the rail workers have the right to strike? Now, there are two things in this. One, yes, it's bloody inconvenient and it's annoying and it's bad and it's awful. Yes, you can use things like, oh, by the way, Kevin Spacey has just arrived in London, a London court, to face sexual assault accusations. Yes, as Nick Ferrari often does, you can use the example, tragically, of someone who needed to obviously go and get their chemo treatment and what have you. I mean, I think the problem with using examples like that, there's always an example like that, even if there wasn't a railway strike. There could be something happening, like there could be a crash or something like that means that the services can't get there. So, God, that's really weird. Oh God, I was just looking at an empty screen. I was thinking, what the hell's going on? I've just disappeared. I don't exist, but it was the beginning of the live. So passengers all over the country are being told not to travel for the 3 days of the strike. But then, of course, there's the 2 days in the middle of the 3 days of the strike, and services are going to be massively reduced there. And I just wanted to know, what do you think? What do you think about the right to strike? Bearing in mind that, yes, it's deeply inconvenient, and yes, it's because it's not just about railway drivers that everyone keeps saying, oh, they get given a good pay. You know, it's about huge numbers of rail workers and employees who don't have the same wages as the railway drivers. Jordan Stevenson, they should have the right like anybody, but they don't half do it a lot. Has there been a full rail strike? I'm trying to think. I know there's been Denise Nelson Gale. What about the ones that don't want to strike? That's a very good point. And everyone tarred by the same brush by that extension. Reese, basically next week is going to be a myth. Doing anything, just going to stay home. Luckily, being South West London, I have enough parks and many high streets areas to keep me occupied. Yes, even though it took me 9 horrific hours to get from Stansted to Devon a few days ago, Elaine Denning. I wanted to use the train next week, says Ellery Jones. There's a bus strike up here in Leeds at the moment too, says Joanne Greenway. But I'm using it next week to get to my COVID booster appointment, Ellery Jones. I mean, there will be some train services. But yeah, so what do you think? You think, should the rail workers have the right to strike? 74% of you saying yes. So 3/4 of you saying yes and a quarter of you saying no. But that's going to cause all sorts of chaos and carnage next week for sure. And has anyone seen Amber Heard's interview? She admits she still loves Johnny. This is curious. Has anyone seen it? I haven't had the time to watch it in full or even find it in full. Where can I find it? Amber Heard admits she still loves Johnny Depp and realises she's not a perfect victim. She in interview, she says she still... You see, would you say you still absolutely loved your ex-husband if everything you said was true? Asked whether she still had love for Mr. Depp, she replied, yes, absolutely, I love him. I think this is more about her trying to, bless her, I mean, I know a lot of people have got no time for her, but she's trying to rehabilitate her own profile in the public eye. Maybe she thinks the only way to do that is to suggest she's not furious with Johnny, but I think in a weird way, it potentially unhinges the validity of what she was saying, if you know what I mean. Savannah Guthrie, yeah, you type it on YouTube, Mark, you can find an 8-minute version. Oh, thanks, Reese. I think she should probably spend time away looking after herself, Daniel Smith. Healthy Mummy Cat, seen the Amber Heard interview, another car crash. She's got to be careful, though. Some of her answers could get her in court. Well, I mean, I was saying that on Instagram. Could she end up defaming herself again? A bit concerned. Johnny's gone very quiet, hasn't he, after his rather extravagant run around Britain. There is the concern that he's possibly down the wrong end of a huge bottle of something. Jordan Stevenson, I think she needs some serious help. Time out of the public eye. So yeah, I'm gonna find her interview and I'm going to unpack some of it for sure. So guys, there you go. Lovely spending a bit of time with you. Stay safe. Have a lovely day. Something will be I know I keep saying this. Something will be landing on the channel later. A couple of trailer reactions yesterday, vlogs and what have you. Yeah, have a lovely day. Stay safe and